Hey everyone, this is Friedel Hacker AJ Raven, and I'm here with my recap and review of the Alienist season number 2, which is titled The Angel of Darkness. Now, this show is going to be only 8 episodes long, and TNT will be doing 2 episodes weekly. So, this ended up being a 2 episode premiere. However, for me, recapping 2 episodes in one video in one sitting is way too much. So, this is my recap for episode number 1. I am working on episode number 2, so it should go up soon, and then I'll also have my written review of both episodes, the link to which will be down in the comment section below. Anyway, coming back to the premiere, the first episode is, I think it's in French, the title, and it translates into From the Mouth of Babies. So the episode opens up with this weird, sinister night, and we are in New York City, 1897, and we are outside this hospital, and this lady is going in, and then we get to see this woman, and we later find out that this woman's name is Martha. So she's waking up to check on her baby, and she realizes that her baby is not in the crib. So she walks around the hospital, she looks at other children to see if one of the cribs has her baby, but yeah, there's no baby of hers in there, and the nurses come in and they apprehend her. Apparently she's kind of crazy, and that's why they are being so physical with her. I'm not really sure. And she's screaming about how she knows about what weird things are happening in this hospital, and if these people don't help her find her baby, then she'll call the police. We are introduced to this new character, and his name is Dr. Marco, and behind Dr. Marco you can see that apparently he's experimenting on someone. Maybe it's a surgery, maybe he's helping a woman give birth. I'm not really sure, but I don't trust him. I also don't trust this woman. She was the one we saw in the beginning of the episode who was walking around during the night all over the hospital with a lantern. So it's next morning, and we in the newspaper we get to see the headline: "Monster Mother, woman who killed her child faces electric chair today." And Sarah Howard was reading this newspaper, and she's angry about the outcome. Sarah Howard is in her horse carriage and is speeding through and she's speeding through New York to get to her detective agency. And while she was speeding, I was like, Sarah, this is dangerous. You're going to get someone hurt. You need to slow down. At the prison, we see Dr. Lazlo, and he's talking to the warden, and apparently the warden is okay with Martha getting the electric chair, and Lazlo tells the warden that even though he has a uniform on, he has no power to be the executioner. And yeah, you can see that Lazlo is supporting Martha. He has a talk with Martha, and it's clear that yeah, it's her time to go, and apparently the case is that she is being blamed for killing her own child. However, Laszlo doesn't believe that. We get to see that Miss Sarah Howard now has an agency, and it's called Howard Detective Agency. However, the work that she's doing isn't that serious. Apparently, rich women come to her because they're worried about their servants stealing from them. So we get this woman who's at the agency, and this is not the time. And Sarah doesn't want to meet her, so she takes the back door, and she's like, I have other stuff to do. I don't have time to talk to whatever to the woman who wants to know whether or not her servants stole the silverware. And you can see that her agency has a whole lot of other women working for her, and they are all supportive of each other. So because the elevator isn't working, the woman who came goes away, so Sarah can now focus on other stuff. Sarah and her employees are going to the prison in order to show their support for Martha. As for John, we see him calling Theodore Roosevelt, and he wants Theodore to do something, to make a call, to say something in order to help Martha. Because John has to be at the prison as well, he excuses himself from his fiancée. So this is a new character. Her name is Vivian Hayward, not Sarah Howard. This one is a Hayward, and apparently her godfather is in charge of the New York Journal, and she wants John to work for the Journal as well. Sarah's here to pick up John because these two have to go together to the prison. Before John leaves, he asks the waiter to put the lunch on his tab, but it turns out that Vivian has all of the expenses on her tab, which goes to show that Vivian is a rich woman. Over at the prison, there are protests going on because, of course, a whole lot of people are not okay with Martha being executed by using the electric chair. And we get to see Commissioner Burns over here, and of course, Commissioner Burns, because of the type of person he is, he's happy about Martha dying like that. The other character we get to see is Elizabeth, and she seems to be the leader of the protests, and she's like, yeah, we can't let this injustice to occur. Martha needs to be saved. So she notices Sarah, and she's like, Sarah, do what you can. And Sarah is like, yes, Elizabeth, that's why I'm here. So John and Sarah are going into the prison. However, because Sarah's New York police identity card is out of date, one of the guards stops her, and this is where Sarah uses a lie, and she is like, "I'm here because Theodore Roosevelt requested it, so you better not stop me." And of course, John is impressed by the white lie that Sarah just told. Martha and Lazlo are still talking together, and this is where Martha makes Lazlo promise that even if she dies, she wants Lazlo to search for her missing girl. While everyone is waiting inside for Martha to be executed outside, a strike ensues. And even though this show is set in the 1980s, the late 1980s, and even though this show ended up being produced like last year, or yeah, it was shot last year. Anyway, it still feels very timely with all of the police brutality that's happening, and all of the sexism that women face. So it's still quite current. Martha gets executed, and of course Sarah tries to stop it. Sarah is like, this is injustice, I won't stand for this, please stop. But everyone is like, no, the court ordered her execution, and that's what's going to happen. And of course, Sarah is not happy about such a decision. We also see that Martha's doctor is there, and yeah, there's something up with him. John's with Lazlo, and John's like, Lazlo, are you okay? You're my friend, I don't want to leave you. And Lazlo is like, yes, John, I'm okay. Whatever you have to say, it won't make the day any better. But as far as my opinion goes, Martha died the day her child was taken away from her, and I'm going to do what I can to search for her child. Sarah is in her office, and she's looking at a portrait of her late father. While she's in the office, she notices someone walk across her room, and it turns out that it's Lazlo. And I'm like, Lazlo, why would you do this? Sarah could have shot you. And yeah, Lazlo is just being creepy, and I'm not really sure why Lazlo is here. Maybe because we know that Lazlo isn't the best with his emotions. Maybe he wanted to talk to Sarah, but he didn't know how to go about it. But anyway, he's here, and these two talk about how much Sarah has progressed, and you can see a whole lot of guns behind Sarah. And Lazlo is like, Sarah, your father would be proud. And then the conversation goes to Frankenstein by Mary Shelley, and how in her novel Mary Shelley was like, you can use electricity to bring someone back to life, but now the same electricity was used to kill Martha. And this is where Lazlo tells Sarah that he promised Martha that he will search for her missing daughter. And Sarah is like, Lazlo, me and my detective agency is at your disposal. And again, you know that Lazlo isn't the one to be asking for help. However, before he leaves, he tells Sarah that if the need arises, he will reach out to her. It's the next morning, and we see Mr. Commissioner Burns walking into the office of the New York Journal, and we get to see this new character. Apparently, he is in charge of the New York Journal, and Burns gives him a lock of Martha's hair for some weird reason to give away through the newspaper. And I'm like, Burns, that's so weird, that's so creepy. Anyway, this new character doesn't accept it, and we find out that apparently he's kind of a messy character. He ends up having one of the writers write an article about blaming Spain for the upcoming war. So yeah, he's messy. He likes to rile people up in order to sell newspapers, even if it's fake news. We then cut to these two new characters, and apparently they are living in the Spanish embassy inside New York. I'm not really sure, but anyway, the husband has to go for work, and he leaves his wife behind, and he tells his wife to not go outside when he's not at home. And of course, for some reason, the wife doesn't listen and she ends up taking the baby to the park. And this is a very weird scene. It seems like she's not feeling well. Maybe she's under some sort of influence. Maybe she drank something. But yeah, she notices that that some people are looking at her weirdly, especially because there's news about blaming the Spanish for the war. So, and we also get to see that someone seems to be keeping an eye on her. One of the things that I enjoyed about Alienist season number one was how we knew who the killer was, even if the main group didn't. So maybe in season number two, we might find out the identity of the killer soon than our main characters. But anyway, someone is keeping an eye on her, and she feels uncomfortable. So she comes back home, and at first I was like, maybe she left the child in the park, but yeah, the child is still with her. Then we have a scene where she's taking a bath, she has put her child to sleep, and she notices something weird. She gets up and she goes to check the crib, and it turns out that the child isn't here, and instead of her baby, there's this creepy looking doll inside the crib. Sarah is kind of getting ready to sleep, and she gets a phone call, and it's Elizabeth, and she goes and meets up with Elizabeth at the woman's house. And yeah, Sarah is like, I'll help you find your baby. And this is where Elizabeth is like, we were thinking of using you to get to Lazlo because he's a famous alienist. Maybe he might help us. And Sarah is like, yes, I understand that you want Lazlo on the case, but this case doesn't need an alienist right now. It needs a detective. And even though Lazlo is a very accomplished alienist, I am a detective here, and I would like you to work with me. I want you to trust me. And Sarah gives this short spiel about women needing to stick together and how Sarah can understand the pain that the mother is going through after losing her child. So Sarah is inside the baby's room, and this is where she sees the doll. And I'm like, you know what? You need to figure out where the doll is from. And yes, of course, Sarah does that. Lazlo is in the restaurant or something, and he's having these flashbacks to one of the court hearings where he was trying to fight for Martha's case. However, the judge wasn't listening to him, and he has the book with him, which is the medical observation in the case of murderess Martha Knapp by her physician, Dr. Markov. And it's clear that Lazlo has issues with Dr. Markov. So he decides to call it a day, and before he leaves, John calls out. So John's there in the restaurant with his fiancée, and this is where Vivian and Lazlo meet. And of course, Lazlo kind of says stuff which is a bit too far. Next morning, we see Sarah searching the house in order to see where the kidnapper came from, and she notices one of the cellar doors has been forced open. Then she also finds the secret door which leads to Fifth Avenue. So apparently the kidnapper could be anywhere in New York by now. Lazlo wants to go and talk to Dr. Markov because apparently, as far as Lazlo opinion goes, Dr. Markov has been lying in his observation because Lazlo couldn't see any of that during his interviews with Martha. However, Dr. Markov doesn't answer Lazlo. He apparently has issues with Dr. Lazlo as well. Sarah tells her employees that this is a very big case that they're working on, and she wants everyone to pay attention. So we get this scene where two new characters, where this girl is with her nanny, and they're walking into this shop, which is apparently one of the biggest shops in the world. And the nanny is searching for some things, and the girl goes towards the dolls, and she notices a doll. And here I was like, oh, something's bad going to happen. Something's bad going to happen. And while this is happening, Sarah is in the child's room, and she ends up noticing that the doll is from Siegel Cooper from New York. And while she notices that information, the girl ends up picking up a doll, and it turns out that that's not a real doll. That's actually a dead baby. And it was very interesting. John is working on the article, and his boss comes in and he is like, John, even though I liked your article, I can't publish it because a whole lot of people are going to get angry. And these two are walking outside, and this is also where his boss tells John that, John, I appreciate all of your determination and motivation. However, I can't publish something without backing facts. And while they're talking, the secretary runs out and she tells these two men that there's news about a dead baby in a store. And the boss ends up telling John to cover the story. And John also asks the secretary to get Miss Harvard to the store directly. We finally get to see the forensic brothers, and they are examining the body of the child. Apparently, the child's mouth was burned, and yeah, these two are still not being taken serious by the rest of the police department. John and Sarah reach the store, and this is where Sarah tells John that maybe the baby that's dead is the one that's from the Spanish family, and this is also where she tells John that she's working on the case, and John is like, maybe that's not the baby. But anyway, they meet up with the forensic brothers, and the forensic brothers tell them about what they found, and how the dead baby is a little girl. And Sarah is like, I need to go in, I need to see the dead baby. And they're like, okay, Sarah, come in. And before she can walk in, it's like she notices someone looking at her. And John is like, Sarah, what's up? And Sarah is like, no, it's nothing. So everyone goes in, and this is also where Sarah is like, you know what? I think Lazlo needs to look at this, but the forensic brothers are like, no, we can't allow Lazlo here. However, we can invite him to our lab, and he can come there and analyze the dead baby. Lazlo comes in, and apparently Martha's child had this benign tumor, and that's what Lazlo uses to identify that yes, the body of the baby is actually Martha's little girl. So our main three, John, Sarah, and Lazlo, are working together, and they look at the autopsy pictures. And John is like, "This reminds me of what those parents do about how they have eyes painted on plates, and then they place those plates on a dead child, and then they photograph the dead child to give an illusion that they're still alive." So yeah, there's something messed up happening here, and apparently whoever's doing this is a very messed up person. Maybe there's more than one, we don't know. And that person leaves the doll because that's supposed to symbolize or contain the evil, so that the other person can still love. The main three characters like that this kidnapper murderer is going to kill again, and we need to find that woman's baby. And the episode ends with a shot of the baby crying in the crib, and I'm like, oh, this is intense. But yeah, anyway, my recap and review of the second episode should be up soon. Let me know what you guys thought of the Angel of Darkness premiere. I enjoyed it. I can kind of understand if this show isn't for everyone, especially because babies are involved, but I still enjoyed it. It's nice to see these characters back again, and yeah, until next time, stay happy, stay safe, stay blessed. See you guys later.